is relatively close to the school. I'm sure everybody knows the Yonge and Eglinton area. And so she's a pediatric functional medicine expert and super mom. And what
that
I
is tongue
really,
in cheek.
pardon? Yeah. And what I really enjoy about her is this sense of community that she builds around her and around her practice. And she's, by the way, doing a lot of vlogs and blogs online, which was something that led to this, because you guys can go online, find her on Instagram. And I can maybe share some links for her clinic after this. And so, yeah, she's been really helping the community in and around her. And I'm one of those lucky people. And so I wanted her to bring her to our community at the school. I want you guys all to know that her practice is really broad. So, and her specialty is kids. So that's why we're all here, I guess. And I'll let you do a little bit more of an introduction of yourself, but I just want to say that in the couple of months that I've known her and been watching her videos and also going to her as a client, just the little tips that I can work into my life are amazing. She gives everybody great reminders of things you may already know, but just practical ways to put them into practice. And she is a super mom, and she is, putting that out there, showing her life with her kids online. And it's really encouraging to know that get your kids involved, get your kids to cook with you, get vegetables, a small garden on your balcony, in your kitchen, whatever you can manage. Everything goes a long way. And Anna and I have spoken, and we like all of those things, and we want to do a lot of that in the school. We want to bring it into the school, but we also want to bring it into the homes. So without further ado, I'll let you take over. And I'll also just mention for whoever's joined in the last few minutes that Dr. Bosner's sister also runs a Montessori, which used to be in this same building of Alive. So it kind of comes a little bit full circle for her that she knows our community in an extended way.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
thank you so much.
Welcome everybody.
We're so
oh my God, it's so my pleasure. So, I mean, if I could preface to say, when we use the word super mom, we use it really cheeky. Like, none of us feel like super parent. None of us feel like we're doing it really well. There's so much information out there. I know most of my patients, and Aditi, you came with lots of information too. So you had lots of very pointed questions. So you're like the easiest person to talk to about those little hacks that you can make in your day to, improve the quality of your own health as a parent, which then in turn really affects, the people that you care about the most, your family. And really, that's why I'm always here. I'm always here to try, and my goal, actually my mission, is to kind of inspire parents to inspire their children to have control over their own health. Because I have seen in my pediatric functional medicine practice and my chiropractic practice, when I take a kid who doesn't believe they have any control over whatever they're complaining of. They've been constipated their whole life. They have back pain, they have headaches. They're not fast learners. They're not good readers. When you give them tiny little bits of information, like we're doing tonight, they take it and they run. And when they see any kind of benefit, it's like a healthy habit that they instill like right away. And they're the ones that lead their health journey. So you don't have to like keep pulling them, be like, oh, you got to feed your microbiome because it's healthy. What does that mean to them anyways? Healthy. Like, they're like, yeah, healthy is something my parents want. I don't know what that means. So today I just wanted to, do a little, I'm going to try and screen share here. I actually haven't done it when I am not running it. So let us see.
You should be the host. I think you should be.
I might be able to do it. I'm going to just put my slideshow. and then see, can you guys see that? No, right? Can you see my screen?
No, I think maybe on the bottom, do you have a share screen option?
I do. I'm just oh, hang on. Let me see where it went. I had one. I think I did just share my screen. So let me see. Anna, you're the co-host. Stop my video. Hide my self view. Let me see if I can get out of here. And oh, okay, let me try this again. So if I go back to you guys, my Zoom, and I share my screen. Okay, so it is sharing my screen.
Here we go. Now we can.
Let's go. There. Do you guys see everything now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I may go too fast. When I get excited, I talk really fast. So somebody give me like a thumbs down or something to tell me I'm talking too fast. I'm gonna go through the information. So for people who can't stay on too long, that I can get through the information first. I'll leave time afterwards if people have questions. Maybe you can put them in the chat box, or we can open it up afterwards if people want to ask questions, if they're interested. Again, Aditi and Anna know how to get a hold of me if you have more questions or if you want to follow. We've got like a couple of weekly free Facebook videos I do every week.
I'll definitely share the link.
Yeah, different topics. I hope to rotate them always. Yeah, you know, I'm hoping they're interesting to everybody. But today, you know, I want to give maybe, you know, tips that take 5 to 10 minutes max, that can really help you really transform the health of your family in a radical way. And one of the things that functional medicine, which I practice, I also practice pediatric chiropractic and have for 23 years. I love the kids. They heal. They're always like, I got to go back and see Kristina. And I think it's just because it feels good to them. And I know that parents are always looking to do better. And I know that they are always looking to do better, but never have enough time. So hopefully some of these things are just little things that you can pick out and start implementing tomorrow, maybe one thing, and you can keep them in the back of your mind as we go into that, you know, cold season. And we really want to just boost our kids' health. So how do we do that? So first, I just want to quickly tell you my why. I have 3 kids, Chloe and Remy and Luca. They're 8, 10, and 12, and my husband. And I'm always trying to look for other ways as a parent to inspire them to be healthier, inspire myself to make healthier choices so they make healthy choices, because I'm not perfect. I know all the right things to do, as we all do. But as Aditi said, sometimes we need little reminders like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm not feeling really good because I've been doing this thing more than I should be, whatever that thing is, or not getting sleep. And, you know, my why to be healthy and try and spread it through the communities is because I see what an impact it makes on my children, and I see what an impact it makes on the children in my community. And if I can help parents feel empowered, that's really a wonderful, wonderfully rewarding for me as a practitioner. So today I'm going to just go over what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what actually does healthy mean to us and to me, and how do I kind of describe that. The fundamentals of health as I see them, stress and how it impacts health, my top strategies, how to boost the immune system, very simple ways. What is the microbiome? Because there's a lot of conversation about the microbiome, and it is one of the keys to long-term health in our kids and ourselves. Sleep and movement. These are all kind of the fundamentals of a healthy life and a longevity and healthy vitality. So we'll go over these. And again, if anyone has questions or need clarification, just write them down. And if you want, you can ask me afterwards. So what is healthy? So the way we look at healthy is not necessarily absence of sickness. You may have a child that's not sick, but maybe stress. They don't have resilience to stress. So resilience to stress, physical resilience to stress, emotional resilience to stress. Strong immune system is really important. And some of us do have kids that get sick more often than others. And there's genetic factors, there's microbiome and nutritional factors, and sometimes it's predispositions as well. Brain power is really important. One of the number one things I've seen in the last 23 years in practice is that there is an epidemic of brain inflammation in our youth, in our kids. We have never seen this level of kids with behavioral issues, it's a word I don't really like to use because there's usually many factors causing that. And I find it really underlies brain inflammation, and it can come from numerous factors. Stress, lack of sleep can cause that brain inflammation, poor choices in chemicals and foods. So brain power is really important. Does your child have the stamina in the day to actually not have the meltdown? You know, and we can see it in our kids when they're not doing well, when they maybe haven't eaten a good meal or they haven't had a good night's sleep. We can see that they just don't have the capacity to learn, and they don't have the capacity to be their best self, as we can with our own selves. Health to me means unlimited energy to do the things that you want to do. So as a parent, not just making it to the weekend and then crashing, which I find a lot of my moms, I specialize in moms and have in my chiropractic practice for 2 decades. And I notice that oftentimes we're just waiting for the weekend to come so we can crash, because we just don't have the energy in the day. And if we do, by the end of the day, when we are with our kids for that small period of time, we don't have the patience because we're tired. So having an unlimited amount of energy to do what you want is so important. And there's so many simple ways to influence that. And restful sleep, not just 7 or 8 hours or 10 hours like our smaller kids need, but really restful, deep sleep and REM sleep that's restorative, that's healing. These are all the things that really together make a healthy person. And not just the absence of disease and not just the absence of feeling sick, but actually this resilience. The resilience to stress has really been tested this year as well. You know, really notice that those children and those adults you can see that aren't resilient to the stress around us, and it's pretty strong this year, are having, you know, issues getting through their day and with anxiety and mental health. So these are the things we really want to look at boosting more than just the absence of disease. So stress is a huge term. So tonight I just really wanted to talk about, I mean, I don't think you can live in Toronto as a parent and not have stress. I think that stress is an inevitable part of our lives. And actually stress in small doses is really good for us. When we look at increasing resilience to stress, some of the things we do are physical stressors, like going and doing cold showers and going in cold baths and sauna. All those stressors can be really beneficial for short periods of time. And I just wanted to go over this nervous system. Oh, that's not working. There we go. So we're not going to get complicated here, but you know, when your body feels stressed, be that physical stress, because you're rushing around, be that emotional stress because you feel overwhelmed from the start of your day till the end of your day, your hypothalamus turns on, and this is the part of your brain that tells you, okay, there's a dangerous tiger or lion coming your way, regardless if it's physically there or not. Your body doesn't know the difference between an actual tiger chasing you and you know, being really angry about work, or a child that's really stressful, or a relationship that's really difficult, or a sick parent that is creating that kind of negative energy. It still thinks you're stressed. So it will secrete hormones from the pituitary gland and the adrenal glands, and you'll produce cortisol, and that is that stress hormone. And it's a vicious cycle, because as you produce the cortisol, you know, your body gets stressed, and it's an incredibly inflammatory process. And when we're inflamed, our body doesn't work as well. So a much more complicated picture, and I'm going to make it really simple. There's 2 major parts to our nervous system. And one of that is the stress part, the sympathetic part of our nervous system, where fight and flight happens. So we were constructed in a way that when that part of our nervous system is stimulated, we know the nerves to our heart and lungs and our legs pump, and we know that, and they're stimulated, and we know we can run away from danger. And that was very adaptive, you know, in hundreds of thousands of years ago when we had to run. And it was useful, and we need to have it. But most of us live here 80 to 90% of the time. And the unfortunate thing is that our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the other part of our nervous system, where we rest and digest, where the nerves that go to our digestive organs, our salivary glands, our large and small intestine, our parts of our heart, that part gets turned off when the sympathetic is turned on. So that's very complex, I'm sure. So in a simple way, if you're always in a stressed place, you can never be in a digesting, restful place. This is the place we heal as well. And so it's really important if you do have stress, or if your children are having stress, that's difficult at school, or, they're fighting with each other, or somebody's not well, or someone has chronic digestive issues. This is a huge thing I see in my practice with children, chronic constipation since they were born, or tummy aches, and they're told their kid is anxious. A lot of that is because your child may be in this sympathetic state all the time. And so their nervous system can't move into this parasympathetic state where they can actually rest and digest. And there's lots of ways to do this that aren't difficult. And maybe those of you who have kids out there, you can be like, oh yeah, I have one that like lives in this area that's like moving all the time, always moving. And then when they stop, they can't move anymore. So really learning to balance these two out, because they're both beneficial, is really what our modern society needs to do, because we are living in this sympathetic stress state. And in this state, we cannot heal, we cannot digest, we cannot absorb our nutrition. So even if we're eating really, really healthy food and we're doing our very best, if our body's always in this stress state, we will have digestive issues. We will have issues sleeping. We will have issues with other kinds of chronic health challenges. A lot of people don't feel stressed. And with kids, it's really interesting. Anna, you probably see it in the school. You guys can probably tell when kids are stressed. Parents can't always tell when their kids are stressed, especially if they're really quiet about it. So checking in with your kids often. With kids, what happens when they're stressed and they're not talking about it is they really lose their ability to focus and be calm. It's the focus that I see a lot with the kids that are quieter. Yeah, and so you may notice as teachers that not only can they not sit still, but they can't focus. And that's because they're in that stressed, like, I've got to run away from this dangerous tiger. And getting them into a more relaxed state at home and in the school is a really great way to help them turn into that parasympathetic and be able to increase their focus and increase their calmness. So I often just tell parents, there's a lot of stressful things going on in our world on a daily basis, not just this year, but every year, and really checking in with the kids. A lot of parents think that kids don't hear things, and they're like, oh, they're not listening. And they hear every single thing. If we are stressed, they feel every single thing. And if we're stressed as parents, it's a tip that I try and use with our smaller children. When we're stressed out as parents, our kids are very connected to us. And so when we say to them, oh no, everything's fine, and they can feel inside, they know there's something wrong because they're so connected to us energetically. They're like, okay, now I'm going to start acting up because I know something's like doesn't feel right. And mommy's smiling and saying it's all okay. It's okay. I have found it's very helpful for children to say, hey, I'm having a grumpy day. How are you feeling? Mommy's a little stressed. It's really good for them to know that it's okay to be stressed and to talk openly about, it's really busy and I'm not getting enough time to sleep. Earlier today, I said to my kids, like, why are you so stressed? I'm like, I got to get dinner on the table and do this talk and no one's helping, and just so it doesn't stay inside and that stress doesn't build up, but also to allow them to understand that they can talk about their stress really empowers them and allows them to release it. And I think that's a really important thing that we don't really realize, that they respond to all of our stress. So what are ways, really simple ways that we can, I've got this in my way, you guys, ways to increase the time that we spend in that parasympathetic healing, resting and digesting place to decrease stress. So less news, even if you have it on the background, our kids are hearing it, you are feeling it. I would say in the last 10 months, we don't have it on in my house very often, but it can permeate your own thoughts and those negative thoughts that are with us, and those negative news articles and those thoughts about those news articles can be extremely inflammatory, the same way as if you ate a bunch of junk food. And I don't think people really know that, that stress, that emotional stress is just as inflammatory, if not more, than a physical stressor. And so doing some deep breathing, actually taking like 6 or 7 deep breaths. And I do this with my pediatric patients. I teach them, hey, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you can't focus, so I know they're in that sympathetic state, I say to them, I want you to take like 3 big breaths and think about something fun you like to do, like blowing a bubble or popping a balloon. With my boys, it would be something like cheeky, like, I don't know, shoving each other. But with parents, I also say when you're having a stressful day, doing some deep breathing, and it doesn't need to have a technique. There's lots of deep breathing techniques out there. But you can just sit and take 3 or 4 big breaths. Doing that with our kids teaches them to do it as well. And when we model that behavior, we teach them, and then they have the tools, because they are going to need different tools for stress than we did. I mean, I'm a little older than both of you. I played outside in the trees in the ravine all day, every day. I didn't have the same stressors my children do. So they need to learn how to take deep breaths. They need to learn how to, go and do some stretching and walking and being outside. They need to know how to practice gratitude when they're feeling overwhelmed and be like, okay, what are you grateful for? I'm grateful for this, delicious piece of chocolate, or I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my laser gun, or whatever it is. Teaching them these ways to get into parasympathetic that are very scientifically backed. All of these are very scientifically backed at decreasing inflammation from stress. They can be really easy things to do. So even if you have a child, let's say you have one of those kids that you can see they just carry the anxiety a little bit more. They're just that child that's more sensitive to emotion. Doing deep breathing beside them and teaching them how to do it. Be like, oh, I'm going to put my hand on my heart and take some deep breaths. It's heart-centered breathing, it's called. And I'm going to picture one time that I was really, really happy. So what I often tell my daughter when I'm doing it is I say, I'm closing my eyes and I'm picturing when you smile, that little dimple in your cheek. And right away, I'm put into that parasympathetic state. And it's so quick. And so if you find as a parent, you're short with your kids, or you're, starting to lose your patience, you too can do the same thing and put yourself into that parasympathetic state for a minute. And actually you can think clear and you can be more rational. And it's the same with the children. And there's such simple practices. Vagal nerve exercises are some of my favorite things to do with small kids because they like to be really silly. I make my adults send me videos of themselves doing it, so I know they've done it. I didn't bring my glass of water, but real loud gargling. So not just like, but like really loud, forceful gargling, almost to tears, can really stimulate the vagal nerve. And the vagal nerve is one of the longest nerves in the body. And it actually is linked to almost every digestive organ in the body. And it does really put us into a calmer state and stimulate that parasympathetic healing place. So let's say you have a chronic health condition, any one of you have a friend, just doing vagal nerve exercises, humming really loud, singing loud in the car. Not only is it joyful and decreases stress hormones, but it also actually physiologically stimulates this nerve, which helps with digestion and with healing. And those are the two things I find the most when people are stressed out are affected, that their digestion, or they may have eczema that just keeps flaring when they're stressed out, or constipation. And I find the vagal nerve exercises are really fun, and humming like whatever song it is that you're liking. Right now, my kids are enjoying some Billie Eilish songs. So we're humming them and singing them really loud. And it's an easy, fun thing for us to do as parents, because we don't take time to do joyful things so much because we're just so focused on finishing everything. At least I know I am. I have 3 small kids and my husband's, not here half the time. So I'm always looking for ways to bring some joy into that moment between pickup and drop off and making dinner. And it does decrease that decrease that sympathetic stimulation, and that's those stress hormones. Getting outside is one of the things that's so easy to do with our families and not done so much anymore. We take our kids out because we want them to burn energy. I don't know, Aditi or Anna, if you do this, but I just try and get mine out so I can get myself out. Because I find I don't get out enough. And there's some incredible literature. The Japanese take their chronically ill patients outside and they call it forest bathing, and they actually go outside to heal. And so just being anywhere with trees, even if you don't live, you live in a busy area where the school is, you could go on the belt line. It's not far, but getting outside in nature, actually, they don't actually know how the color green and the way it stimulates certain parts of our brain, how it affects our immune system in a positive way, but it does. They found it does. And so we're just learning that research now. So don't underestimate like forest bathing and being out actually in the green. It really makes a huge difference. When I saw this picture, I thought it was so beautiful. It really mimics the lungs. And the person who I quoted really talks about breath and talks about how taking a deep breath between action and reaction really gives us an opportunity to not only think, but tap into our healing capacity and put us into that parasympathetic nervous system healing place. And so I would say when it comes to stress, breathing is the simplest thing we do. And it's the simplest thing we can teach our kids, like, okay, take 3 big breaths. Where do you think you left your paper? Like, those are such simple little things. And our kids will go through phases. And I'm sure that, what are the grades in the Alive Montessori school?
It starts with preschool up to elementary. So basically 2.5
18,
up until grade 6.
up until grade 6. It's from 18 months or 2.5?
2.5.
So like a CASA, 2.5 to 6,
Exactly.
and then the lower elementary, and then upper elementary, correct?
Correct.
So they can all do that. So this is what they call Shinrin-yoku, is the forest bathing. That's the Japanese term. And this, I just thought this was really interesting. The actual forest chemicals, the chemicals you can get from the trees, they increase the number of natural killer cells, which we use to fight off tumors and viruses and bacteria and pathogens and protozoa. Those chemicals decrease inflammation in our body, very much like let's say taking fish oil or eating turmeric might decrease inflammation. So does actually smelling these chemicals, and it will increase immune system function by way of increasing the number of these natural killer cells. So it's quite a powerful practice, and it really does, it really can fit nicely into your routine of you get home and you just go outside, even if there's snow. We live in Toronto, we need snow pants. This is one of the easiest ways I find for me to start to encourage children and parents to try and boost their immune system, just by using nutrition. I know there's lots of supplements out there. I don't want to talk about that because there's such a vast array of things. I'm sure everyone who has, there's a lot of parents like, I've got my this, I've got my that, I've got my this, but how do we do it basically through the nutrition, through what we're feeding our kids? Because that's actually the long-term goal. You can't out supplement a bad lifestyle. If you have a kid that's not eating colorful food and not eating healthy, it doesn't matter how many supplements and gummy fish oils and things you're getting them, they're not going to be as healthy. And then this is the best way to really just slowly implement these steps. When we eliminate inflammation, which can come, like I said, from stress, it can come from being sedentary, it can come from inflammatory foods, things that are processed, things that come in plastic packages that have lots of colors and different kinds of sugars. Those are all inflammation. And when we remove inflammation, we can boost our immune system. So like I said, stress and sleep. If your child's not sleeping well, and this is a huge spectrum, sleep could be a whole conversation because sleep is so different for different kids. But if they are getting short amounts of sleep and you're going to bed late, that can be inflammatory. Eating inflammatory foods or eating foods that you're having reactions to. And as parents, we kind of know, we're like, oh, when my kid eats this, they're really gassy and smelly, or their eczema flares up. Most of us know, we don't really know what it is, but we know something's happening. So really looking at those kinds of things and thinking, how can we do better in terms of decreasing inflammatory things in our children's environment and in their diet. One of the things we look at a lot in the functional medicine practice is looking at that microbiome. So the microbiome is a whole host of bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa, parasites that reside in our gut. And actually it starts at our mouth and ends at our tail, but in our large intestine and small intestine. And having underlying infections in there, not knowing about that can also be a cause of low-grade chronic inflammation that can deteriorate health. That's a little bit more of a deeper step. Having the right nutrients, I find what I'm seeing in my practice in the last 10 years that I didn't see 10 years prior to that is that our kids just don't have enough nutrition. It's not only that they're not eating well, they actually just don't have enough of the vitamin and minerals they need for their brains to work and for their focus to happen and for their brain chemicals or neurotransmitters for anxiety and calm to be made. So I really push the food piece because it's the simplest way and it's the way that our body accepts the nutrients much better than in a supplemental form. And social isolation and like being sedentary can be actually very inflammatory. They actually say that smoking 25 years ago, that a sedentary lifestyle is just as inflammatory as smoking was 25 years ago, which I was really shocked to see. It's that, and unfortunately, I don't know about your school. Our schools aren't doing after school programs anymore. So we really have to be out there moving my kids a lot. And a lot of parents are still working when school is done. So really being creative about not letting our kids sit on the computers for 5-6 hours at a time because they're not allowed to go outside. It's really, really important. And making sure they are having socialization. However we do that in school, through Zoom, socially distanced play dates, super important. This is a topic no one ever wants to talk about. No parent likes when I talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it just for like 3 minutes because it is so important and the evidence is so strong and so clear. Sugar is 100% inflammatory to everybody. And even worse, kids are more sensitive, and some kids are more sensitive than others. So they process sugar a lot quicker than adults, and they're more sensitive to it. And maybe those of you who have more than one kid, that one kid. I have one kid that when he has sugar, he's like a puppy. He runs circles. I can see it and I'm like, no, that's not good. And I know that's really inflammatory for his brain. And in studies done, I think at least 15 years ago, showed that when you eat excess sugar, let's say you just had a binge, you went to Tim Hortons or whatever you did, not only does it suppress your immune system within 20 minutes, but it can last for up to 5 hours. So we think about the holidays typically as people eat a lot more sugar, they don't sleep as much, their kids are up. When you try and be mindful about just balancing it out. And it's hard to do sometimes, but knowing that if your kids are eating more sugar because there's some sort of holiday event or some sort of gathering, know that they're going to need more sleep and they're going to need more support the next couple of days because it can really impact their behavior. It can impact their attention span for a couple of days. It's not just in the moment. And that can affect their ability to learn. So sugar, processed excess sugar, we're not talking fruit sugar here. We're talking extra added high fructose corn syrup, fructose, sucrose, all of those super duper sugars that aren't just cane sugar. They are not only impactful in a negative way to behavior and immune system, but they're also addictive. And actually they've done research with laboratory animals and shown that it's been shown to be 7 times more addictive than heroin, which is pretty unbelievable because it seems to be so innocuous. And I have done advanced clinical training in reversing Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. And the number one thing to stop that brain inflammation, to stop those processes from moving forward and having those brains deteriorate is sugar and excess sugar. It's really linked to brain inflammation and it's really linked to cognitive decline. So when I look at this generation of kids who are having, and it's really sad to me because we have so much information at our hands and there's a lot out there which can be overwhelming. But the number one thing I've seen is behavior. I mean, I hate the word behavioral issues because I find it's always linked to a variety of things. Sugar is one of the things that will always impact you in a negative way. So even if you think, oh, I'm being mean, you're really not giving your kid the chance to function optimally and really grow to their best potential when they're having sugar-laden snacks every single day. We're not talking about, the birthday cake here. We're really talking about those kids. And we know those kids that we have because they're addicted to those sweet, sugary things because it gives them a bit of a boost. And they're really grumpy when they don't have those. So I won't say more about sugar. I think I pretty much made my point, but it's so important. And it's not to shame or blame anyone, but we are the parents and we need to, if we have a hard time with the sugar ourselves, I don't have a lot of it in my house because I really like it. So try not to have it in your house because your kids will beat you down and either sneak it from you or take it from you. The better and more healthy options we have, and there's lots of healthy options that feel like treats that are really healthy for us. The more of that we have, the less that we have to argue and fight about the real heavy duty chemical stuff that really is linked to, all cause mortality and all cause chronic health conditions. My top dietary recommendations to boost immunity. So the number one thing that I recommend is to eat the rainbow of colors. So some of us have those kids that like to eat beige plates. And those of you parents who have those kids or know those kids that just eat beige food, macaroni, cheese, pasta, bread, butter, it's all kind of beige. They're not getting the whole spectrum of nutrients and vitamins. And so regardless of if that food is good or bad for them, let's put that aside, that it's not nutritious. we need to have red food, and we need to have orange food, and we need to have green food, and we need to have yellow food and purple food, because all of those colors have different vitamins and minerals and things called phytonutrients, which we need for our immune system to work and for our brain cells to grow. And so I always tell kids, how many, like it's a game we play, how many colors can you get on your plates? And we really shoot for, 7 to 10 servings of veggies and fruits, which sounds crazy. So instead of thinking about it like you need to have a ton of different portions of food, I tell parents, chop up a bunch of veggies and don't just serve one plant at dinner, serve 2 or 3, but they only have to have a little piece. Like a 2 to 3-year-old may have one piece of pepper, maybe one broccoli stalk, maybe some sweet potato, but now they've had 3 different colors. So multiple vitamins and minerals that come along with it. And we're working at supporting their immune system. We're working at supporting their microbiome when we do that. So we call it Eat a Rainbow. I know there's some programs out there called Rainbow Plate. And it's really like, make it a joke. In our house, we're like, okay, who can have more colors? So some days, because we make salads with a whole bunch of different sprouts, and we'll make a bunch of different veggies, we could have 10 plants on our plate. My kids are big eaters, but even if they're not eating big portions, it's like a game we play. And so I encourage parents to play that game, be like, who can have more different colors on their plates? Because if you make it fun and you don't make it about, you have to eat this, because that we all know that doesn't work. If you make it fun, then they usually come along for the ride. And what Aditi said, which is, it's so true. When you plant your own food and your kids plant your own food, my sister, I have 2 sisters, one that looks just like me. So for those of you, if you ever see me again and I don't say hi or anything, it's because it's not me. She actually teaches gardening in the schools. And she has the kids all plant, and the kids will pull out radishes and tatsoi and things they've never eaten, and they'll eat it because they grew it. And for years, parents have been coming to my sister saying, oh my God, I didn't even ever eat a radish, and my kid wants me to buy radishes because he pulled it and grew it. So the more we engage them in growing their own food, and there's a whole host of other benefits to that, including, microbiome, bacteria in the soil that's really healthy, but just learning how to nurture something as well. And then eating it will make them try it. My kids will eat everything because we've had a garden forever, and I just throw everything in there. And you don't have to be like a master gardener. You just have to let the kids do it, and whatever grows, grows. And it's a great way to get that rainbow of colors. Avoiding inflammatory foods. So what are those? For the most part, for most people, anything that comes in a box outside of, let's say, pasta or rice, processed grains, sugar, soy, processed foods and colors. If it has things on the label that you can't understand, it's probably a chemical, it's probably inflammatory. There's a lot of conversation around the microbiome. And my personal and clinical feeling is that having a very strong microbiome will prevent you from having all kinds of health issues. They've shown that it helps turn on your genes for increasing resilience to stress, and all your healthy genes, and helps turn down the genetic predispositions to the diseases you have. And we feed our microbiome through plants. And we have specific kinds of plants, prebiotic and probiotic foods. And that's always thrown around. So I'll explain what that is, just to give an example of what kinds of foods you can start adding into your diet that will help boost those good, healthy microbes in your gut, that will help you run the biochemistry of life and keep you healthier long-term. One of the things I find for immune system that's really important, and that is always lacking with kids, is we need to get enough protein. Depending on your size of kid, we have a lot of kids that come into our practice, and some of you parents who are listening may have a child like this who just doesn't like to eat protein. They're just going to eat a lot of carbs. And we need the building blocks of protein. We break protein down to actually make the immune system cells, to make the neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, which are used for motivation and good mood. And if we're not getting those amino acids from proteins, we can't make these things. So for anyone out there who has a really anxious kid who's maybe having therapy, I am a 100% believer in therapy. Or a parent, who, if you yourself are finding you're feeling really overwhelmed and anxious, if you start looking at your diet and realize that I'm not getting enough protein, then you can't actually make those brain chemicals to help you with the anxiety. And to make the antibodies and the immunoglobulins we need for our immune system, you need to actually eat some protein. So if your child is one that doesn't like protein, You have to try and play with it. And there's nothing wrong with carbohydrates. Again, I love lots of plants, fruits, and veggies, but we need to have protein in order to make those immune system cells. It's really important. I don't know why I put this on here. If your kid doesn't feel like eating because they're not feeling well, let them fast. Just make sure they're hydrated. It is the way, this word here, this autophagy is the way our body goes inside and starts to clean out. It's like the garbage man. They go and they clean out, they fight the bacteria, they clean out dead cells. And so when we're eating, we can't do that. So if your child is sick or you yourself are sick and you don't feel like eating, just drinking liquids and understanding that the body's really smart and children are really intuitive. They don't feel like eating. Don't offer them something that you know they'll eat, like a sugary candy or something because you want them to eat. If they're sick, just offer fluids and maybe like broths just to get them so that they're hydrated. But it's their body's own natural way of wanting to do this autophagy and wanting to heal itself. So don't worry about that piece. The gut microbiome is my favorite topic. I feel like our gut microbiome is what's going to save our chronic health conditions that we're starting to see. Autoimmune disease is on the rise in children. Chronic, I have small children I'm seeing with Crohn's and inflammatory bowel diseases. It's insane. And one of the things I really focus on is building that gut microbiome. So there's over 100 trillion different microbes. And actually, so we have 98 billion human cells and over 100 trillion microbes. So we're actually, I always like to make this joke, like, are we actually just like a bunch of microbes having a human experience? I know I'm just joking there, but there are more of them than us. So we can't eradicate them. We can't, we have to feed them and nurture the good ones so that they can keep us healthy. 70 to 80% of our immune system cells are found in our gut microbiome. Our brain chemicals that are used for mood, which, we start to see a lot of mood disorders in young kids these days and in parents, our dopamine and our serotonin. So dopamine is our motivation molecule that gets us to do things. Serotonin is our mood molecule. I wouldn't just say it's for happiness, it's also for sleep. And GABA is the brain chemical that we use when we're feeling anxious. So when you have a lot of anxiety, our body will produce GABA. And if you don't have enough GABA, then you can't take control of that. And these things are all found in that gut lining. So if our gut microbiome is healthy and not inflamed, those microbes will make those biochemical processes run, and they'll keep us healthy and make all these chemicals for us. It's pretty an amazing dance between us and them. And the way we feed them is through plants. Prebiotics versus probiotics. So what's the difference? I'm sure you've all heard of, some of you maybe have heard of probiotics. You can take them. Prebiotics, what's the difference? Wait, maybe I should go back to that picture. So the prebiotic is like a food or a substance that feeds the bacteria, the healthy bacteria. So there's unhealthy bacteria in our gut as well. So sugars and too many starches feed our bad microbes, and we're okay to have them in small amounts. But when we have an overgrowth of them is that when we start to feel unwell and tired. And so what we want to do is we want to eat prebiotic food, which will feed our microbes, and then our microbes will make some probiotics. So here are just kind of my little sheet of things that you can give your children or yourself to increase the food that we give our healthy microbes so that they can make all the chemicals that we need. Artichokes and onions, garlic, bananas are a great one. Lots of kids like bananas, so don't be stingy with the bananas. Blueberries and dandelions and flax seeds and beans and lentils. All of those things provide nutrition for those microbes and for the healthy microbes. And the healthy microbes are the things that are going to keep our immune system healthy. Probiotic food. So I actually always recommend, I recommend it through the year, but as we get into fall and close to winter, I always recommend pick 3 or 4 different kinds of fermented food and introduce it to your family. So yogurt, kefir, kimchi. Actually, just on a side note, they've done quite a few studies on kimchi, and kimchi has been shown to help repel coronavirus infections, which is just like they've actually done studies. They did another study in different countries that used fermented prebiotic food like kefir, yogurt, and sauerkraut. And they found that the sauerkraut, so the plant that was fermented, had the most protective properties. So the kefir and the sour yogurt, the probiotic yogurt, didn't have much of an impact, but the sauerkraut did. So I go to the local store. The Healthy Butcher is near the school. I don't know where people shop. Pick different kinds of sauerkraut. You know, there's dill pickle sauerkraut. I find kids are very open to that. You can do a light kimchi and pickles that are done in salt and water, not in vinegar. The vinegar pickles don't have any of those healthy probiotics. The ones that have the cloudy brine are the ones that have the probiotics. And like throw that pickle in with eggs, like not in the eggs, but like on the side, put it as a breakfast. People don't think about breakfast as being savory. And I would say if you have an opportunity to throw a plant in there, we'll do like scrambled eggs and avocado. And sometimes I'll just like throw a little scoop of sauerkraut. We did this morning. And you know what? They got like those 2 plants in first thing in the morning. They got their probiotic food, which is helping boost their immune system and helping fight any kind of inflammation they have. And kombucha is readily available. And kombucha is a fermented drink as well. And again, it kind of tastes like pop. My kids don't drink pop, but we'll have kombucha in the fridge so they feel like they're getting a treat. So any which way we can sneak around to give them the healthy food, we try and do in our house. And for parents who aren't used to doing it, just slowly try introducing. The kombuchas are all different flavors and usually pretty well tolerated. And the pickles I find are really easy for people as well. Okay, I'm blowing through this. I just want to be mindful of people's time. I have no idea what time it is. So I just want to really emphasize the importance of sleep and how sleep really affects like everything. And as parents, you remember when you weren't sleeping, and maybe some of you still aren't sleeping because you have small little ones, it affects our brain health. Actually, our brain cells start to die with one suboptimal sleep. I can imagine I had 6 years of suboptimal sleep. So I'm sure I lost a lot of brain cells. But we think about our family and our kids, and that sleep is so important. And so if you have a child that's not sleeping, just keep trying to do the sleep routine is important. It affects the way we digest. It affects detoxification. So it's a really, really important thing. I find parents don't emphasize their own sleep enough because it's a long day and they're like, I just need to watch something. What's really important to know is that our body detoxifies between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So we have a bunch of cells that come out and they clean everything up. So if you're not sleeping till midnight, you're missing half of that detoxification period. And it's really, really important. And you'll find that even if you're getting those 8 hours, but you're not getting them, you know, before 10, you're getting them at 2 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock, you're not going to be as healthy as you could be. So really shooting for 10:30. I know that's not always possible for people, but that is that natural circadian rhythm we're supposed to be having anyways. And circadian rhythm is our wake and sleep cycle. One of the things that I like to tell people too, and this is a really simple one, if you have a kid that doesn't sleep well, a good night's sleep starts first thing in the morning. So you're probably wondering like, what the heck does that mean? If you want your children and yourself to slowly start, you know, affecting that circadian rhythm, maybe you have a kid who just like has never slept, like they're always going to bed late, they're cranky in the morning, but you've tried everything and you want to pull your hair out. When you get them up in the morning, make sure the light from outside as much as you can is shining in their eyes the first 20 minutes. So open up their window shades or have them go to sleep with their window shades open if it's possible and there's not too many street lights. And getting that light first thing in the morning will start that those clock genes and will start that circadian rhythm and actually having them look outside. And that's not always easy to do with little kids. Like, hey, I want you to stare outside for the first 15 minutes, but just exposing them to the light. It really works for moms and dads. When you find that maybe your sleep has been off for so many years that you can't even manage. Like I remember when I was doing my training, I would go away and I wouldn't have kids waking me up. I'd still wake up multiple times a night. So it took me like a month to really retrain myself once they started sleeping. What is adequate sleep? I mean, it's very different. I put this chart on here and you can see like, even between kids, I have 3 of them. One always has needed more sleep than the others. He's the oldest, but he's always needed more. So for the kids in your school, the 3 to 5-year-olds, 10 to 13 hours. I mean, that's a pretty typical realm, you know, for kids that are a little bit older, 9 to 12 hours. For adults, you know, they've always said 7 to 8 hours. I find 8 hours in the research has shown to be as good as you can get, but also the quality of your sleep. So if your kids are on screens before they go to bed, I know we all know this, but people don't practice it. They may have nightmares. They may not be able to get into a deep sleep and then they're cranky in the morning. So I know there are times where we have to pull out our electronics for whatever reason. Like I did not tonight, but normally when I do a talk at night, I'm like, okay, you guys can watch a show, and they think they hit the jackpot because we don't put the TV on, at any time close to bedtime because it is stimulating. There are times you do, but just knowing that the electronics can really interfere with your sleep, and the children are more affected than we are. So just being mindful, if you have a kid that's not sleeping, look at those basics, like wake them up and put the light on. Hey, do we have electronics after dinner? Maybe we shouldn't. A lot of parents do that so they can clean up and make dinners. So just trying to do it and be mindful that it may be affecting your kids' sleep is important. I think this is our last little chunk. Movement is life. So getting out of movement for all of us, movement helps move all the inflammation, all of the things that all of the bacteria, all the things that we are killing, like our body is attacking our lymphatic system, which helps with all of our infections and keeping us healthy. It moves when we're moving. And when we don't move, it becomes stagnant and we're less healthy. So like I mentioned at the beginning, sitting is the new smoking. And the research is really, really significant and very clear about it. The more sedentary you are, the much more increased is your risk for a long-term chronic health challenge, which means you will be sick for the last 7 to 8 years of your life. And nobody wants that. So getting outside and moving outside is great. We're surrounded by lights that are unnatural 24 hours a day. And we don't get that natural light. So getting outside is important. And like I said, it helps with that lymphatic system, which helps with detoxification. The needing community. I mean, we know this, you're a small school. My kids go to small schools. The community is so important because feelings of loneliness actually cause inflammation, which is maybe a surprise to some. It was a surprise to me when I first started studying it, that actual feelings of loneliness can cause physical inflammatory particles the same way smoking might. So making sure that you're creating community for your children, creating community for yourself as parents. It is lonely sometimes and it's hard work. And so, connecting on Facebook or over Zoom calls or at the park waving, just, creating that community because we do need it. And what they found in the blue zones, the people who live, more than hundreds of years, the areas in the world where people live the longest, they found that sense of community and having a sense of purpose in community was the number one thing that helped people live longer. So we need that for our kids. So here's my prescription for healthy living. Eat the rainbow. Focus on whole foods, as little processed, as little box food. So that means when you go into the grocery store, go into the produce section and on the sides, don't go down the aisles unless you really need something. Rotate what you eat. Diversity in food is really important for diversity in our gut microbiome. And that microbiome is going to make all of the immune system cells and a lot of the brain chemicals that we need. And the more we rotate the food, the more nutrients and minerals we get that are different. Adding probiotic and prebiotic food. So the probiotic foods like the kefirs and the pickles and the sauerkrauts and kimchis. There's some mild kimchis out there that are quite lovely if you chop them up really, really small. The prebiotic foods are like the asparagus and garlic and onions, and you can just hide those, and bananas. Avoiding inflammatory food is just long-term, for all of us. Even if you start as a parent, like, okay, I'm going to remove those processed things that I really like because they're probably not even real food. I call them frankenfood, and we all know what they are because we eat them sometimes. Like I can make a play on goldfish crackers. I know moms and dads love goldfish crackers, but they're really just little tiny 20 ingredient puffs of nothing that's nutritious. So pick a banana instead and throw it in your bag. It's going to be much better for your child's health. Avoiding a processed sugar and chemical foods and processed food is really important because it increases inflammation. So we want to just try our best to stay away. And then feeding your microbiome, eating those prebiotics and those probiotics, and eating lots of plants in different colors. I mean, that's the easiest step. If the next time you go food shopping, you're like, okay, I'm going to pick out 2 different veggies we've never tried. Even if you have no idea how to make them, go online and take a look. There's so much out there, and take your kids and be like, kids, what do you think this is? I remember when we tried dragon fruit, my kids were like, what is that? I'm like, I don't know. Let's try it out. And we didn't even know how to peel it. I'm like, how do you cut it? But engaging them in it, it's exploratory, it's sensorial for them. And they become more engaged and they're more likely to try it when we include them. The lifestyle factors modulate your stress. Practice gratitude. I mean, we do this with our kids at night. I encourage people, there are gratitude journals for kids. They're called 5-minute journals for kids. I love them. What is one thing that made your day great? What is one thing that would make your day great? What is one thing you're grateful for? Super easy. supporting the immune system. Again, that's with good sleep and healthy food. Hydration, I didn't talk about, but you know, as much fluid as you can get into those little monkeys. You know, it's detoxifying and it really helps. Getting restorative sleep. So making sure you're not too stimulated before you go to sleep. Don't have any angry conversations with your kids or your spouse before you go to sleep because you won't have a good sleep. Getting outside and movement will help with the detoxification. Turning off the news and the social media, which is so easy to do. The kids do hear it all. And just reconnecting with nature and your family and, you know, reaching out to community. Those are all things that'll really help support a healthy immune system. Wow, we're done.
Yeah,
I know there was a lot. It was a lot of information. Really basic stuff that maybe we all know, but we're not practicing. So hopefully you can take 1 or 2 or 3 of those points and go, okay, we're going to start eating more colors. You know, it just takes one step of doing better a week. And like 200 days of that is 200 better days. So just moving forward and not being perfect, but knowing that you have options to really, you know, radically change the health. I mean, I think what my point really is that I don't think we really understand how much of a shift we can get in our kids' mood and behavior and ability to learn when we do these basic things. I have seen children who have been on medication. I have seen children who are angry. I have seen kids who don't speak, and we nourish their bodies and we remove inflammation, and it's like they light up and the lights turn on and they thrive. And that's really my goal, is to just hopefully present that kind of stuff. And hopefully you take 1 or 2 things away with you and you start to see that you have some power over changing that health in your family.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kristina. This has been really, really, I think, informative for our parents, and not just for parents, for us, for me. I think I'm going to start building my plates and making it more colorful, because that's for sure something that I think we all could do. And like you said, it's not that hard. Just takes a little bit of planning, I think. Maybe, you know, when you go grocery shopping, just look at the different colors. Just like you said, how can I, you know, incorporate more yellows or greens or oranges? But that was fantastic. Thank you so much.
I hope that it was not overkill, not too much information.
No,
I'm
great.
He knows.
Great.
She comes and she's like, let me tape it.
Yes.
And again, these are just different ways that you guys can, people can reach out. I've got a Facebook group. We have like just a Facebook page. I've got 2 Facebook groups I post in on Fridays. My Bosner Supermoms group, daddies come to. I do like a live 11:30 video there every week on Wednesdays. And it's on like the last couple of weeks have been detoxification and how do you know your kid needs to detoxify. And so those are there, you can get those. And then on my Instagram handle, there's a bunch of them, but Dr. Kristina Bosner is the one that I kind of post little weird videos when my kids are doing interesting thing. I have yet to post my Instapot videos. But I know people are like, oh, you made duck legs. I'm like, it took 5 minutes. I don't do anything that takes 3 hours because I have 3 kids and like I'm a single mom with a clinic. So if you want to learn how to and it's not fancy cooking, pop on that Instagram. I'm always trying to get on there. It doesn't always happen. I always preface it by saying to my kids, okay, guys, no one thinks I'm important. I'm doing this for work. No one thinks I'm important, just so they don't think it's that important. But this, like, it's fun way to connect, and it's a fun way to peek into kind of my not so perfect life and how I'm trying to manage it all.
I just want to say for the parents who are on, and I just want to let everybody know that you've actually kept your practice open for this entire COVID period, which I have to applaud you for, because I know a lot of even pediatricians are only doing appointments on the phone. And so this is a great avenue for any parent who, you know, you can't get through to your pediatrician, you don't want to go to a walk-in, you can go to Dr. Kristina Bosner's clinic. She books online, she books on the phone, and she's, you know, committed to the community and staying open. And that's amazing. I have friends of children who have not known where to go during these COVID months because their pediatrician is closed and they're in a panic and they're not able to show up to hospitals, and healthcare is changing. And maybe you can talk for a couple of minutes about how, because people have just a really closed set, like I have a GP or I have a pediatrician now, he's the only one I can go to. So, maybe you can let people know they can go to them, they can come to you at the same time, and it's fluid, and health is something that has so many avenues. It doesn't, if we're coming to you, it's not something you have to report to your doctor. The doctor doesn't mind. You're happy to see
And I
someone
work,
who
I
has
have
a
to say,
doctor.
I work in hand with some pediatricians who have known me since their kids came to see me. In the chiropractic practice, I find it's really quite easy. I've been doing that for a very long time. When it comes to searching out your healthcare, there's so much information. And if you're, I mean, this is a firm, strong statement, but if you have a kid that has a chronic health challenge, chronic constipation, chronically tired, chronically cranky, and your healthcare practitioner is not talking about diet and lifestyle, food that can be helpful now, then you need that information, because the medications are there and they don't work for everyone. And I have children who have rotated through medications, and I'm not saying medication can't be helpful, but you need to address the root cause, and not having the right nutrients and not having that part of the answer that has to, I mean, I've seen so many kids who they're like, oh, well, I'm constipated, but I've always been that way. I was told that I'll never poop. And I'm like, I don't understand. What do you mean? Of course you can poop. Like, we have to be able to poop. And we all have different training. So there is a time and a place for everyone. My practice has 13 other women in it, from acupuncturists to naturopaths to massage therapists to kinesiologists. And I've always worked in tandem with other practitioners because we all have a place. And just, when I see someone that says, well, why did my doctor tell me that this could help my kid's constipation? They recommended Restorelax. And so maybe some of you know someone whose kid has been on Restorelax for years. It's because they didn't learn it. It's not because they're withholding information and they don't want you to know. It's just because they didn't learn certain things. We all they learned the pharmaceuticals. In my advanced clinical training in pediatrics, that's what we learn. How do you heal the body? By figuring out what the actual problem is. And from what I see, we are undernourishing our kids' bodies and brains. And so, having the both come together is the only way we're going to move forward. And healthcare has to change. We cannot be scared, and we cannot be just treating symptoms anymore. We parents demand more. We need to know how to take care and be proactive with our health, our own health too. We are going to have a tragic amount of mental health issues after this year. I mean, I see it already. I've got anxious kids coming into my we've had a whole slew of cutters come in, and that's a whole nother story. We have to know how to support our kids in multiple, I mean, as many ways as we can find to bring together, because all of these problems are multifactorial. And one person isn't going to solve it. And one approach, it's not just food. It's not just a medication. It's not just sleep. It is like a complex dance that happens within their body. And we have to be able to come together and share, and not be afraid to share it, right? Because we all have a place. And, I challenge anyone when someone's doctor will say, oh, well, the food won't change. I'm like, but show them how your kid is thriving. And that's how I work with the pediatricians that I have come to work with. They really have seen the benefits. Usually they're the ones that brought their own kids with their own traditional kind of challenge. And you can do both. And we should be doing both. We should be embracing any kind of support that we can in our system. You should have your people, you should have your massage therapist. Like, we have a massage therapist that does lymphatic drainage for constipation with kids. Like, it's a very cool, and then we teach them to eat. So there's so many tools out there. And we shouldn't be shy about learning them, and we should work together, and we shouldn't be shy about sharing them with our healthcare practitioners. I mean, our pediatricians want our kids to get better. We all want the kids to get better. We all want to feel better. When I'm told that there's no answer, I'm like, what, are you gonna accept that answer? So you're just gonna be constipated forever? Like, that's, to me, that's my frustration. And that's a frustration I think I share with a lot of parents. So I try and just educate the kid as well as the parents. So the kids are making those choices. I went on a rant there, sorry.
Can you speak a little bit about water and the importance maybe of filter water and maybe a water filter that you recommend?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, listen, some of the non-filtered water and it's, I mean, there's a website that you can look it on. It actually helps fungal overgrowth. So like certain candida, certain fungal overgrowths, and these are overgrowths that we don't want because they produce chemicals that make our brains work less to its less capacity. There are things in our water. And so my favorite water, and filtered water is so important because we have so much water in our body and we should try and make it as clean as possible. It's a Berkey filter. You can buy them on Amazon. I think on our website, we've got like a link to like our healthy habits. There is a download on our functional medicine page, and maybe a DT or Anna, I can get that to you. It's just like our tips to a healthy family. Like, and it's like a little download. So if anybody wanted to, you know, read it, they could. It's pretty easy to get. The Berkey filter can filter out so much chlorine and other chemicals. We have estrogens, you know, that are in our water, and we're starting to see young boys with gynecomastia, which is like developing breasts, right? We're starting to see girls getting their periods at 7 and 8. These are new things in the last decade or so. So the filtered water can be important. A Berkey filter is not that expensive. You can stick it right on your counter, and you spell it. Maybe I can spell it here for you. Berkey filter, and I'm not going to make it private. I'm going to do it to everyone. And that way you guys, they have them on Amazon. You can order it. You can go right to the Berkey filter. I think there's like an actual website, but that's my favorite. We have that in the clinic. In my house, I have a whole water filtration system from a company called Nimbus. And we have a dechlorinator as well that we put right on the pipes coming in. I think it was a couple $1,000s when we first moved in, but it dechlorinates the entire house. So it just has to be on that thing. So I don't remember that, but you can find these things. Again, all of these steps, you know, green products. Someone had a question about rainbow veggies and what do you do with a kid who refuses to eat them? So it's such a common problem and challenge. And I know parents like want to tear their hair out because like, I have tried everything. So my very strong answer is don't offer anything else. Don't have that backup cracker. Don't have that backup pasta, because you know what? They know it's there. And I have never seen a kid, and do it slow, right? Do it slow. Just put it on their plate and be done, right? Wait till they're really hungry. I find it interesting when kids don't like fruit because it is sweet, right? So sometimes, depending on the age, we do go through these things, you know, through these periods, like 6-month periods where kids kind of push back a little bit and they know what you want them to do. So they definitely don't want to do it. I've definitely seen that with my 3, but I just think the less junk food you have in your house, the less they can eat it, the less you can eat it. So if you don't want your kid eating certain things, that everything in the fridge is something that's nutritious, they're going to eat it at some point because they're going to be hungry. And caving in and saying, I just want them to eat, so I gave them these crackers, you're literally giving them no nutrition and filling their belly up because they will get hungry. So just keep trying to be creative with the way you cut it, with the way you present it, have them shop with you. Noga, like I find when kids get to choose, what do you think about those berries? Those are really interesting. And blackberries, like, oh, okay, I never had these. Really in getting them involved and just not succumbing to giving them something that you know is not nutritious just to fill them up because they know it's coming. That may sound really hard. We've had kids who have taken like 4 days to eat because they were so addicted to the opioid stimulating food, which are those crackers and those starchy carbs, because it stimulates a part of your brain that feels good. And those kids that are sensitive to it become a little bit addicted to that feeling. So when you take it away, they're really angry. And so just sticking strong and knowing you're doing the right thing, or do less and less of the food you don't want them to eat and add more and more of the food you want them to eat. You can do it slowly too. I know an incredible nutritionist that runs a program out of Ottawa, but she runs it online, that really, for those really hard, picky eaters, like really hard, I have my patients go through her program. It's a 12-week program. I have her book in the office as well, if anyone's interested. It's called Raising Resilience, but really teaching about nourishing and not removing. So just adding those colors and not talking about you have to eat it, which I know you can try everything and they can still not eat. And for kids who are really picky with food, this is just another thing I found. Sometimes they're zinc deficient. And so their taste buds are different. And when we start adding zinc, and there's, zinc lozenges over the counter that people can use, they're now, advertising them for immune boosting and stuff. Just adding that little bit of zinc stimulates the appetite a little bit, and you may find they may eat more. So it's just like a little pro tip. And it's an easy one to try. I mean, when you're really, really having a hard time, you may need to seek out an expert, but in the interim, just keep trying and know that they don't have to eat a lot of it either. They just have to keep eating the variety, and the more good things you offer, the less opportunity they have to eat the stuff that's not nutritious.
I just had a question about something that a lot of people talk about casually, which is, oh, all kids have parasites, and how do we know? How would we know?
So, okay, so
people tell me, oh, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't even know. Just assume they do have parasites. And I don't even know what to make of those comments.
So in our functional medicine practice, if we accept a patient to do functional medicine, we do comprehensive stool testing, which shows a lot of those kinds of things. I found worms in kids. I found parasites, but like, the sneaky trick is when there's a full moon, and we just had a full moon on Monday, if your kid gets crazy and really cranky around the full moon, parasites come out and lay their eggs around the full moon. I know it's gross. And they come out at night. So if your kids get crazy around the full moon, it's a pretty good indication that they may have parasitic overgrowth. So I know that's kind of really gross, and traditional medicine doesn't really test for all of those parasites, right? Because we're not in a society where parasites, actually most cultures in the world do parasite cleanses a couple times a year. They'll do diatomaceous earth. They just do it because they know their kids pick it up. We're like the only culture that doesn't ever want to believe that we may have parasites. Like that would be beneath us. But most cultures do parasite cleanses. They do new moon cleanses, right? Because in the full moon, like those parasites come out. So that's like my trick. When someone says to me, my kid, like I keep wiping their poo all the time. Like it never ends. Like you just keep wiping. That's when I know there's some bacterial or parasitic overgrowth. And usually they're a little like crazier at the full moon, and they get an itchy bum. Like they're always itching their bum, and little kids don't care. They'll just itch their bum. It doesn't matter when it is. So you can spot that. That's kind of like my pro trick. But if I think a kid has parasites and they're presenting a certain way and their mom is worried that they're not getting nutrients, because parasites, like the symptoms of parasitic overgrowth are so vast. You could have dark circles. You could have numbness and tingling. You could have anxiety. You could be really skinny, right? And not absorb anything. So it's so wide. And the best thing to do is test and not guess, right? Like, because guessing, I mean, we can all guess. It is a little clue though, that full moon challenge. That's what I call it. So if you get a little kooky around the full moon, or your kids do, it's a good possibility they have parasites.
But for example, like a pediatric doctor wouldn't really, that's not part of their rundown. Is that something we can approach them about and they can test it out?
They can test for pinworms. I'm not sure if they can test for any other worms, because pinworms are pretty common in small children. And actually the way to test for pinworm, and I think the traditional pediatrician will say this as well, is you put a piece of tape on their anus when they go to sleep, like on the hole, and you can see the parasites on it in the morning. They come out and lay their eggs in the anal canal. I know, gross, but pinworms are super, super common. It's not that unusual. And again, it's when we start to see our kids not thriving that we have to go, okay, I have to go deeper. I have to look at this. It's not a simple fix. I know for pinworms, they give an antiparasitic, and I think the regular pediatricians will give the antiparasitic, but I'm not really sure about whatever else they test.
Great question.
So ladies, I have to go put my children to sleep.
Yes, thank you so much for doing this. We hope to connect a lot of our community with you. And
if anyone wants to reach out, if anyone wants to reach out and ask some questions, you can catch me on here. You can go to our our website, Bosner Health, and you can look and see all the different services we offer. We've got like the clinic space, and then we also have the functional medicine, which is a little more curated towards that healthy lifestyle. But we're always offering, I mean, in January, again, we'll restart doing our live webinars that we do based on whatever topic is of the month. So just keep tuned to that. And maybe what we can look at is if anyone is interested in talks about certain things, maybe we can collect that. And maybe over the course of next year, do a couple of talks that are targeted specifically to, if we're not doing them in the clinic, targeted to your community on what they want to learn.
Amazing. Yes, we would love that.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you guys so much. It was great to meet you, Anna. At DTLCO, I'm sure in the